Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Kadoozie Kast. I'm in Los Angeles doing my show. I'm doing my show, and I met a wonderful gentleman the other night, and I really wanted him to do the Kadoozie Kast, so I sent him a message on Twitter, and he said yes so graciously. We're here with the Joe Wilson or Joe
There's
Wilson?
a million of them. So
There
my
are?
dad's got the same name. Yeah, there's a CIA agent husband who's the Iraqi ambassador named Joe Wilson, and then there is a congressman from North Carolina who heckled Obama during a State of the Union whose name is Joe Wilson.
But you're the Joe Wilson.
I think there's just too many Joe Wilsons to have a the Joe Wilson.
There are.
Yeah, I don't. I kind of enjoy it because my name's a prefix for average.
Can you tell he does comedy? He's like spiraling.
I had to stop, so I had to stop spiraling. I stopped doing stand-up just because somebody get me out of this hole.
So you stopped doing stand-up. You tell stories now. Is that what you do?
I make stories. I write scripts and shoot them and have actors do them.
Oh, cool. We're going to get into all that because I want to know all about it.
Oh, God.
But we have to start from the
All
beginning.
right, the beginning.
Because I'm fascinated. I just love where people come from, what happens, whether it's the environment or their own internal thing that makes them make their decisions and how they get to where they are. So where were you born?
I was born technically in Peekskill, New York.
Peekskill.
Peekskill, about an hour north of New York City.
Mm-hmm. Is that up and that's beyond
north
Westchester?
of Yonkers.
Okay. Is it Westchester?
Yonkers, Ossining. I think it's probably Westchester or close to it. I was only there for about 9 months.
Oh.
And then I moved to Poughkeepsie with my family. It was a decision I made as a baby.
You did? You said, I'm out of here?
I'm just out of here. They wanted to get away from all the shit that was coming up from the city, so they thought, I'll move to Poughkeepsie. And,
How much further up is Poughkeepsie?
like an hour and a half north. People live in Poughkeepsie and work in New York City.
Oh.
Like Metro North right up. It's right on the Hudson. It's very quick.
And how many kids in the family?
Older sister, younger sister.
So you're the only boy.
I'm the only boy.
Boys.
And I was raised by a dad who was an only child, was raised by a single mom.
Oh. Dad who's an only child raised by a single mom. So what does that mean?
That my mother is from a family of 5 sisters and 1 brother. So it was a very female-run house.
So you're saying, yeah, and my dad's an only child. Sometimes he does, I'm realizing it now that I'm older and not worried so much about him being like my father. I'm able to see him as a person.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, he was an only child. Like even at Christmas and stuff, sometimes it gets very quiet. And I used to take it personally, think it was all. And I'm like, oh, I think it's because he just doesn't even know what to do.
Well, I think what it is that there's a what you go through with siblings is not what you go through as an only child. So I think you have to be able to kind of like entertain yourself and be able to be quiet because you're not constantly going back and forth with siblings as a younger person.
Do you want to hear weird? Sure. My dad was raised by a single mom too because his dad died when he was 3.
My dad's dad took off when he was 3.
What?
Yeah. Went for a walk. When I was going to get some cigarettes and never came back. One of those. Yeah.
Joe, that's weird.
Yeah. So then, and both my parents are from like poor backgrounds, like really not like shitty backgrounds. So they were like, my dad's was a union plumber. Then
my dad was a carpenter.
Oh yeah. My dad worked in Ossining.
Oh my God, we're related.
Doing construction.
Yeah, that's what my dad did.
And then construction got really bad in the 70s. And then he moved to Canada and lived there for a while. He was a welder, taught himself how to weld. Well, got certified in welding, and then did that for a while. And then he was working in Schenectady on a nuclear submarine for General Dynamics that was never going to hit the water. But it was a trainer for the Navy, but they needed to make a completely working submarine that you could drop in the water as a trainer, but it was never going to hit the water.
So that they could make sure that it would work, because if they dropped it in and it didn't work...
Right. But also, if Navy guys are on it, like, it's got to be the real thing.
Right.
And so you have to pass all these welding tests because you're welding fucking subs and background checks and all that sort of thing. So it was and they came back, economy got better and all that kind of stuff. But it was it was an interesting experience, let's say.
For him.
For all of us.
Oh, so he was doing this while you were born.
Yeah, I was like...
So wait a minute. So he went to Canada when...
Well, so we all moved from Peekskill to Poughkeepsie in, I don't know, 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And then in probably mid-70s, early mid-70s. He had to go to Canada to work.
Without you guys?
Without us, yeah.
Oh, for how long?
A couple years, 2-3 years. Yeah, wasn't fun. And he came home on weekends for the nuke sub, so that was a little bit better. And then I remember him, because it was all these other plumbers who got certified as welders, and they all had families, they all had mortgages. And my father had a 1973 orange Volkswagen, so all these big fucking guys getting this giant, and just you watch a whole car just go down, and then they drive for hours to go to Canada, because gas was so expensive. He had the cheapest, that was the cheapest way for all of them to get there. So they all just crammed inside, and with one bag, and then they were all roommates, at the nuke base, at the other place up in Canada, and one day they broke down, and I don't know how old I was, like 8 or 9, and my mother and I at 3 o'clock in the morning had to drive to wherever they were at some truck stop because they couldn't get home. The car completely broke down.
And where were your sisters? They stayed home?
Oh yeah, they stayed home. Yeah, and they were, my younger sister at that point was probably 4.
Oh, so your older sister probably had to watch the younger sister. Yeah. And so they would do whatever it took. I feel like my dad did that too. And I don't think, as a kid, you realize, money, if you don't have any money, it is so much
and also,
pressure.
How much, and that's the thing, is to have 3 kids and a mortgage, and to just have the entire economy just drop out when you think, okay, I'm the blue-collar guy, I'm in the union, I've apprenticed, I'm always, if you were a plumber and you were in construction, you did okay. That was a good gig.
Right.
But the problem is when the gig went away, then there was no gig for a long time. And my whole life I was told, do not go into construction.
And when the car breaks down, it could cost, you might have to save, take some of the food money to fix that. People don't even understand that all the time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's my parents, my mother tells me now that nobody really knew. We always talked about the shoebox full of money that didn't exist. And it was that kind of, it was just pure wish. For a few years, I think everybody just got by and just this will work.
But that anxiety is prevalent. I feel like it was very prevalent.
And it never went away.
No. I don't mean to laugh.
And it continues today.
I know.
They're both retired, same fucking shit.
Anxiety in the body, right? I know.
Yeah. And I understand it. It makes complete sense. And I spent a long time and continued fighting because it's very, I work really hard. I get up early. All that shit comes all that work ethic shit comes in handy because I'm always when I shoot stuff, I'm the person that shows up first.
Yes.
I'm the last person that leaves, and that's, I don't know. I'm just comfortable with it.
I find that can be a blessing and a curse, though, because
completely agree.
Right?
Yes.
Because you sacrifice yourself somewhat. Because everybody else thinks, well, Joe will do it.
Oh yes, trust me. And literally, I've been told that, Joe does all the work, so what's hard about that? And
then in a weird way, in a perverse way, you're like, oh, great, I do all the... it's really screwed up the way it happens, because you think I do all the work, that must be good. In reality, it's not, because you're actually depleting your energy in a way.
But the thing is, now I sort of feel like the way the entertainment industry is fragmenting, that the idea of mass audiences is sort of a fool's errand at this point that really only giant companies can chase.
What do you mean by that? Explain that a little bit.
Well, the idea is that television is designed to bring in a large audience at a certain time to watch advertising.
Right.
And if now that technology is chipping away at that, and there are more options for people to not do that, the TV networks are having a harder time finding a way to make television work. And because their old model it's just like the music business, and it's just like the publishing business. Television and the film industry it's not shrinking, it's fragmenting. In other words, when we grew up, there was 3 networks.
Right.
Then there was basic cable. Now, throw in basic cable, Facebook, Twitter, keep going. iTunes, what else you got? Podcasts, what else you got? It just goes and goes and goes. So there is no end to the number of distractions. So I have been overtly unsuccessful in show business, let's say. And
not covertly?
No, overtly. And no, it's just way out in the open, way out in play. Hey, everybody! It didn't work out. So I kind of got to the point where I was wondering why I was doing this at all. And I remember, this used to be fun. I'm like, why isn't it fun anymore? It's like, I'm trying to get into the minds of a bunch of jackasses who make nothing but fear-based decisions because they don't have a creative fucking bone in their body, and all they do is greenlight things or say no, and either of those decisions can end their career. So they're afraid, understandably.
But doesn't end their career, because I feel like they fail up here. So they're always afraid. They make bad decisions, and then they get promoted.
Yeah, but the thing is, I am the person with the product. They are the gatekeeper.
Right. We
all agree that the system behind the gates is fucked up. It's not a meritocracy.
Right.
And the thing is that they hold the keys to the mass audience. There's never been a way to talk to the audience. There's never been a way to tell a story directly to an audience.
And now their way is, right?
And the thing is, I've been online since fucking like 89, 90. There was BBSs. You would dial into a computer in somebody's house. They'd have multiple phone lines. It was a little mini internet.
And what'd you do on there?
We would talk to each other, email. But the first solo show I put up, all these people from that board came to see my show, who I didn't know, only from that board.
I feel like Dane Cook did that. He was first on MySpace, and he...
Right, but the thing is, there was but if you look at what Amy Mann and Andy DeFranco were doing with music in the 90s, they were doing this. Mm-hmm. They were doing, what Louis C.K. does now. Mm-hmm. They were doing it with music fucking 20 years ago.
Right.
And that's the thing is, the problem with the entertainment industry is that so much of what it takes to make something successful is marketing. And that is usually the most expensive part of the production. Or in the case of movies, sometimes half.
Not even just expensive, but it has to be done right. Because you could have a great product, and if it's not marketed correctly, you're doomed.
Right, but the idea of marketing so if you make a television show, you do the pilot. It gets the process. Yes. It gets put on the air. Now it gets put on the air, and the ratings are bad.
Right.
All TV is made at a loss, no matter what.
Right.
The networks are losing money until you get to that 88 episodes.
Right.
Then you go into syndication.
Explain that to people.
Sure. So in other words, the money that is going out literally on the books, that first season, it's a financial loss. That second season, it's a financial loss. That third season, still losing money. They need 88 episodes so they can go sell it to a network so you can watch it at 4:30 in the afternoon, at noon, whatever. And they sell it worldwide, syndication, put other languages on it, dub it, all the rest of it. That's where the money's made. You get your library, and that's why Seinfeld is a rich man. And the idea of that doesn't work really anymore. They don't know how, because they can't give the time for the audience to build, because they're a publicly traded company and they're losing money.
Well, so that's a conflict of interest even right there, because now the public has a vested interest in what's going on with the art. So now if the public says...
But the networks don't give a fuck about the public.
They care about the public in terms of the investment, in terms of the stocks they do.
Yes. They need the public to watch shit. That's all they need, because they need the advertisers to see that the public is watching shit.
Right,
so when they go to the upfronts, they're talking about, hey, look at this is going to be good, and this is going to be good, huh? Pretty excited. And all the advertisers are like, maybe it's not on the air yet. Maybe it'll suck. And then they put it on there. Hey, this one sucks. And then it gets canceled.
Gamble every time.
Right, but the thing about it is they never... I went through... the last year I went through sort of a TV-ish deal. And my suggestion with this company, who has television shows on the air, who wanted to work with me on something online, my idea was they were thinking about the TV pilot thing. They were going to make a pilot and do this and do that. I'm like, why? Why do you want to make a TV? Well, because we can sell it to a network. I'm like,
okay, let me ask you that so people will understand. So you're talking to a production company. So
I'm talking to half the owner of a production company that makes television shows that are currently on television now.
But they sell it to a network. Like, most people don't understand how it works. So a production, you can either do a deal with a network or a production company.
And most of the time, the networks, a long time ago, like Carsey Werner was a production company. They owned the networks. Now the networks, there's almost no independent production companies. They're very little. They're all so married to the networks that.
And Carsey Werner owned the network because they had so many successful shows on the air.
Exactly.
So again...
And they owned them. That was the thing. Like, now the networks won't let independent production companies, like, whatever that deal is, they own a big chunk of that. Because the production companies would get a larger chunk of the syndication money.
Yes.
Now that's not the case, because it's the networks that are making the shows. Period.
And so the networks have their own production companies, and they all stay in bed together now.
Exactly.
Because they saw the way to make the money.
Well, the thing about it is, like, they're just so used to that model, and no one can back up from it and look at doing anything a different way. They're going to be forced to do it a different way, and just like music did, just like the publishing industry is doing now. If you look at and the film industry to some extent, because there's no indie theaters anymore. Mm-hmm. So if you make an independent film and you go to Sundance, where the fuck is that thing going?
Right.
And if it's not, and if it doesn't have that mainstream on the line, okay, it could be an Oscar win, that sort of thing, that they can play that card with it, which is the least profitable card. I mean, they make way the fuck more money off a dumb movie that a lot of, number one at the box office. Mm-hmm. Why we all get excited about that, I have no idea. Why it's on the news, I have no idea. We have no involvement. It's just like, it's pretty much like talking about the stock market. It's like, oh, look at all these giant companies that chilled for fucking months, sometimes years, to get you to watch whatever their giant tentpole, Superman, whatever.
Right.
So much money. So my suggestion to the production people was, make a 90-minute pilot and put it online. Put it online. Let the audience find it. You can make it for next to nothing. New media contracts with SAG. You don't have to deal with any of the unions. You can shoot it like an independent film, so you don't need trucks, crew. You don't need any of that shit. Fucking 3 5Ds, one guy to boom it, we're done. And then you put it on the internet, and then you give it the time that the networks can't, because they don't have the money. They can't take the loss.
But I need to go back to that before you continue talking about it. So the reason why the networks can't take the time, so it's almost like they ended up fucking themselves. If you can just
they did.
I can say that
they did
because out of the greed, they were so greedy that they ended up fucking themselves. Because if they're worried about being a publicly traded company, then they are in the hands of the public. They have to do what the public says. If they're not making enough money,
they don't have to do it for the people who own their stock.
Right, but that's still public.
But it's all but it's about profit. It's not about public. It's about numbers. It's not.
What do you mean?
In terms of, they're a publicly traded company in that they're just like Exxon.
Right.
So if Exxon says, "Hey, one of our refineries went down. We got to raise money. Sorry, but gas prices are going to go up." And then you look at their quarterly, and they're like, "You made how much in 90 days? How many billions of dollars did you guys make in 90 days? You couldn't have fucking taken it in the mouth for a fucking week and kept it under $4 a gallon just for kicks and still walk with billions in a quarter?" So the idea for them is that they put that thing on. The audience isn't coming. So the advertisers are like, what the fuck are we paying?
But wait a minute, I'm still confused as how you just compared that to the Exxon. So
because they're both traded on the stock market.
Okay.
People own stock in them. They need to make profit fast.
So that the people will keep investing in the company.
So that the company is worth more. It's just like right now NBC is worth a lot less than they were 10 years ago.
Right.
As a company.
Right.
Even though Comcast bought them, I'm sure someone go through the books. But in terms of when you're not the number one network, that means that your advertising revenue is down because you don't bring in that mass audience.
Oh, right.
So that means that you are not as profitable, which means you're not giving dividends to your stockholders, which means your worth as a company is going down.
But the same people that are investing in the company are the people that they're trying to get to watch the shows, is what I'm trying to say.
No, but what I'm saying is the people who invest in the company could give a fuck if they put on hillbillies who shoot each other in the face. As long as there's a giant audience watching it.
Who do they think is going to watch it if they don't watch it, is my point.
They don't think about it like that.
That's what I mean, how dumb they are.
I agree. Everything you're saying, I agree.
But this is how I live my life. I'm always like, hold the phone. This doesn't make any logical sense.
But what is great about right now in history, like this is, what is going on now with television and film is at the level of Industrial Revolution. Is at the level of when the entire world went from farming to making shit. Mm-hmm. Everything changed. There weren't like giant companies. Everybody just went to work because those giant companies didn't exist. It was tiny little fragments. So then you have the 3 networks come in and they take everything over. Mm-hmm. And then you have basic cable chipped away. Then you have the, your HBOs, that kind of thing. Then you have your Netflix.
But the reason why HBO and Netflix and everybody else got to do what they were doing is because the networks were too busy being greedy, trying to swallow it all up.
No.
They weren't paying attention to the competition or to the craft.
Netflix is publicly traded and HBO is part of Time Warner. So everybody's publicly traded.
I'm not saying that they're not publicly traded. I'm saying that they were, with the production companies, they were just trying to figure out more. How can we make more money without paying attention to the competition, to what people are making?
I think the reality is that it is not going to be possible to make the money that they used to in television with a mass audience anymore. Right. It's not. They're having a harder and harder time getting people to tune into the live thing.
It's because they did it to themselves, is my point again.
Well, technology also did it to them, too.
But if they kept creating good product
iTunes.
And they didn't keep going as fast without paying attention.
That part I agree with. Because what's interesting is Sons of Anarchy had bigger numbers than the network shows did this past season, which I believe is the first time. But Kurt Sutter, who makes that show, talks to fans year-round on YouTube.
He stays engaged and cares.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's the thing that individuals can do that companies can't. And this is where social media fucks every network. And it's great because you can sit back and just watch them not know what to do. They have no idea what to do. And unless you have an actor or you have a showrunner who is going to play nice, because Kurt Sutter plays fucking hard. Like, he throws people under the bus and drops cunt left and right at executives all the time.
And he's still winning, though.
And he's still, because the thing is, he's bringing in, if he wasn't bringing in those numbers,
right.
He'd be fucked.
To be honest with you, maybe he could tone it down a little with the C word and everything when the show gets canceled.
But the thing about it is that is his brand. Right. Everyone knows he makes a motorcycle gang show. And he's kind of a miserable cock who just, former stand-up, same fucking thing.
Right, but if he doesn't have another show that's not a motorcycle
he's going to be so miserable. Yeah, he's going to be. Because he went from The Shield to that, so. But his wife's in it, He's got his sister-in-law working on the show.
Which is awesome, I love it.
And that's the thing. Right. So if you step back from all of it, let's figure this is the fastest way to do this. There is no entertainment industry. Just imagine there's no entertainment industry. So there's no networks, there's no agents, there's no managers, there's no infrastructure that doesn't exist. Now, everything else does exist. So Twitter exists, YouTube exists, the ability to tell stories, the ability to put them online. All that exists. And there's an audience. That exists, that's real. And when you step back and you think, okay, I don't need 8 million viewers in a week because I don't need to please the advertisers who paid for my story. And the other part of this is that you got to fucking deal with all the network notes and all the bullshit.
Oh my God, I'm not joking. One night on my show, I'm not joking. It was one line. It was an hour and a half we had to stand on the set in front of the audience. An hour and a half. I was like, what? Like, what could they? Nobody cares. Mm-hmm. Even the people that are trading on the Wall Street, they don't even care.
Because if you look at all the people who are making decisions, why are there so many fucking people?
I can tell you why, though. I'm going to still keep going back to my point. Yeah. Greed.
Yes, but the thing about it, and I completely agree with all that, I just think that I know people who work in the industry, and they're very successful in the industry, and I don't think that they're greedy personally, and they have personal problems with all the bullshit that they have to deal with to make the product. And even the guy that I was talking about this television show thing with, he's like, look, Joe, this is the way it works. And once people say that, I'm already ready to punch you. But this is the way it works. When I got my first TV show on the air, I had to make a compromise because I wanted to get my next show on the air. Right. And I said to him, that is great, but I didn't make this show to get another show on the air. I made this show to make this show. And now I can. So what the fuck are you talking about? So my idea was to make the TV pilot, put it online, let the audience build, because they had contacts in every entertainment reporter, and we had plenty of fucking names, lots of hooks to talk about the show.
To draw the audience to this.
Right, and the audience, it's a show that already exists. It's already on. It's called Vampire Mob. It's already online. It already has Marsha Wallace is in it, who's Mrs.
Oh, the girl who came to the show was tweeting.
No. Marsha Wallace, who was the secretary on the Bob Newhart show.
Oh.
Carol, and she's Mrs. Krabappel on The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah.
And Kirsten Vangsness, who's...
No, but
Penelope.
who's tweeting from Vampire Mob?
That's me.
Oh.
I'm Vampire Mob.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a lot of... Yeah, that's my show.
Oh, okay,
and that's
cool.
why it was 20,000 followers.
Oh, well, let's make sure we tell people that. It's called Vampire Mob.
If you go to vampiremob.com...
And now this is the show that they wanted to do and you wanted to do, but it's not online, or it is online?
It is. There was an hour... I've already shot 120 pages.
So you just
done in the can
wanted the production company to help you promote it?
The production company, when I first met with them, they said, we don't want to produce your show, we just have 3 notes. And I said, you are the best thing in the world. Sure, give me your notes. And I'm like, oh, those are actually... And the thing is, those notes, creatively, totally agreed with them, right. And they're still in the fucking script. That I'm not going to shoot with them. But I got a 150-page script now. Ready to go. I got a cast. Ready to go.
I don't understand. It's a 150-page script for just a 1-hour show? Is that what it is?
No, that's the thing is, like, I don't fucking... That has nothing to do with me. Like, that's the thing is, I don't have a format. Half hour, that has nothing to do with me. I'm on the internet. Fuck that shit. I don't need
But
that shit.
wait, but we have to explain it though.
Yeah, no, but
if
we
you have
don't.
150 pages,
what
what
I'm
is it going to
saying-
be?
It'll be, well, Vampire Mob we shot 120. It runs, season 1's 27 minutes, season 2's 49, so it runs an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, so you just cut it up after you shoot it?
No, I shot it in episodes and then I put them up as single videos. So the idea, it's sort of like, you know what Netflix did with Arrested Development?
Yes.
Indie TV.
Right, but I'm asking you 150 pages is not one script. It's not
Yes,
one...
yeah, it's one
episode.
It's the whole season.
Whole season, that's all I'm
the whole
saying.
season. Right, yeah. That's all right.
So funny.
Yeah, 'cause we were
You're like, no, I'm on the internet. I do whatever I want. I'm like, I know, but you have to at least like...
I know, well, because people get in that hole. That's the thing. It's like, well, is it an hour show? I'm like, I don't fucking care. Is it comedy? I don't care.
No, I didn't mean that.
I know. But that's what I mean. The first, it's.
I know,
That's
you've
why I
been
don't. Because people are
horrified
like, "So are you pitching it?" I'm like, "No, I'm not pitching it. Why would I?" Because what I see now is that the entertainment industry will have less use for me as I get older. I have had very little success to no success, so I don't have anything to go, hey, I'm the guy who did that.
Right.
So when I look at all that, and I kind of look at it like, okay, if there was no entertainment industry, and I'm just a guy who can do this, and I know how to write, I know how to operate camera, I know how to teach somebody to boom, I do all the editing, like, I literally can just show up with a bunch of camera, shoot shit, leave, and edit it, and then it's online. Like, no giant company, no trucks, no nothing, no nobody. I know sound design, coloring, I know how to do all that shit. So I can get a bunch of actors and go make a story, shoot it in HD, put it on YouTube. It can be an hour and a half, 2 hours long on YouTube as one video, and that can stream onto someone's television in HD.
Okay, but
So
don't yell at me now.
All right.
Open your heart.
Okay. Right.
I'm here to
All right,
support you.
okay.
I want people
All
to
right.
watch your show.
All right.
Do you have any foresight as to what you would like to see it become, or are you just winging it?
No, I'm not winging it. I am acknowledging that that the entertainment industry is just unnecessary. And
No, I'm saying you personally. Would you like to make money from this? Would you like to
Oh,
get
no,
advertisers and eventually have it make money that way? Or
well, like your Kickstarter campaign, right? I made season 1. I paid for it. It was shitty cameras, but I paid for it out of my pocket. Season 2, I didn't have the money, so I tried to raise $10,000 on Kickstarter. We got to $6,000. That was it. Lost it all.
Killer.
So then, yeah,
Killer.
Exactly. So my shitty website, just put up a bunch of PayPal buttons. It took 6 months, and we raised $10,000.
Oh, so see, can we just take a moment, honest to God, because I know you're reacting to LA a lot,
Yeah.
but what you're actually doing is you're doing what it takes, which is keeping on
Right.
going no matter what.
Right. But that's what I'm saying, is that's why the entertainment industry isn't necessary. Like,
As long as you personally can take it.
absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing, is like, this is not for everybody. And this is not, like, I'm not going to sell a show and buy a house in the hills. And I've lived in the hills. It sucked. Fucking bunch of rich assholes. Justin Timberlake was my neighbor. Bunch of assholes. So, and it fucking takes forever to get anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it was great. Like, the backyard was a cliff. Mulholland was at the bottom of it. We rented. Trust me, it wasn't money. It was just like, we lucked out. There was a widow who had a dead husband and needed to rent. So, because she was an alcoholic drug addict. She needed to pay the second mortgage because she was so fucking drunk. And on her walker. And but the way I do see it is, the work that I'm making now is still being found. The people who have donated now, like, you have a relationship with your audience. Mm-hmm. I have a relationship with my audience. Like, mm-hmm. I don't even call them fans because they're not really fans.
No.
They're kind of like, they're co-producers.
Right.
So the idea of Vampire Mob was to create an indie television series, because when I don't have to play, it's like The Matrix. They need to be successful in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or the show gets canceled. I don't have that overhead. I don't have to place all those advertisers.
Right.
So that content's out there. People keep finding it. It's just like Arrested Development. Arrested Development was canceled for 7 years. So Netflix put it online, and they watched those numbers all that time that no network would ever give, because they bought the line. And then they're like, hey, why don't we make more of this? So they did. Family Guy canceled on Fox for 3 years, DVD sales. And they're like, hey, a lot of people, bring it back.
Joe, I can tell you I had 4 episodes or 8 episodes that were filmed of Costello, people still tell me like they want to see it, they want more. I'm like, what?
Yes, but that's what I mean. Like that's the thing.
That's the parallel universe you're talking about.
That's the thing. Is
Let's
like,
tell
but that's what I'm saying. Is like I don't need the people who like what you do, and your ability to do that are the only things that you need. So if
you don't want to feed into the other stuff.
But But what I'm saying is that this is actually the smarter way of doing it.
Yes, I'm saying if you don't feed into the greed, it all comes back to greed. If you don't feed into needing the house, needing this, needing that, then they can't create a weakness in you. Then you don't need all these people around you. Then you don't need it. If you go, listen, I just like my house.
Right, but that's the thing is like, but I don't think it's very hard to move to Los Angeles and explain to your friends and family that you're not rich and successful in show business and you're still making stuff. And what are you doing? And so people just give you money. Like some woman donated $1,000 to season 2 before I even started raising money. And the thing about it is that first you think it's that. You think, you make a show and you have that mindset of like, oh, it's going to blow up, it's going to be it. And then it doesn't. And then but you keep hearing from all these people who really love the show. And I'm like, well, do you guys want to make more of the show? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, why would I go to a company? Because I talked to companies and they had all this fucking shit they wanted me to do. Like I had a company who's like, give me a bunch of establishing shots. And I'm like, I don't do establishing shots. They're a waste of time. The audience knows. Follow that guy. Done. Established. Moving on. We don't need all that. And they were like, no, because the DVD. I'm like, yeah. You guys are wasting your fucking time. No. The amount of money you're going to give me is not worth the bullshit that you're coughing back up to me. And I understand why you're coughing it up, and you're perfectly nice people, but you're fucking wrong. You're wrong. Because you're thinking old model. I'm looking 2-3 years in the future. 2-3 years in the future, I'm going to build a giant audience.
Right.
Online. And that's the thing is like, my show is seen all over the world. Like I've mailed t-shirts to the Philippines, to Cape Town, South Africa. But I'm one guy.
Yes. But even as you're telling it to me now, I see you coming alive. Right. So in a town that tells you to do other stuff, I'm giving you the moment to talk about it. You're getting rejuvenated, remembering that you do know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
You'll continue on because of it. And in defense of your family and everybody else. Of course they don't know what you're doing.
Oh, sure, no. Well, the thing is,
everybody just goes to work all the time.
Right. And the thing is, I've been doing this shit my whole life, so now everybody's just kind of used to.
Well, maybe you've been doing it like halfway. Maybe this time you're really going to just keep going with it.
The level. I had a day job. I quit I was a private investigator for 11
We need to talk about that.
11.5 years. And it was a great day job because I was acting, I was doing stand-up, I was writing, and I worked at home the whole time. My company was in Glendale. And it was
I was going to say, how could you be a private investigator and work out of your home?
It's all by phone.
What? Mm-hmm. Oh, no, we need to talk about this. We'll get back to Hollywood, but I need to know.
Yeah. I was in Boston from like 84 to 97, and I quit. I was working at the Sonesta Hotel.
You were in Boston?
Yeah.
I feel like did I know you in Boston?
I'm sure we tripped over each other somewhere along the line. I'm sure I've seen you in Boston at some point.
Right.
I had to have. And I didn't start doing stand-up until like mid-90s, but I did very little and then like moved out here right away. I started doing like solo shows at a place called Mobius. It was at Congress in Summer. And or A Street, and then I did a 2-person show with Mary Keefe O'Brien, who's somebody I knew from. I worked with at Faneuil Hall as a waitress who was.
Where did she work?
We both worked at Crickets.
Oh, Crickets!
Yeah,
I worked at Durban Park.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My wife worked at the one on the same side of Crickets. No, Lily's was owned by us across the way. It was the same company.
Oh.
Yeah, we could actually steal silverware from each other.
Lily's is where I got knocked out by the girl and called her a cunt.
Oh, really? Oh, that's hilarious. There was so much coke running through that place.
It was
I got knocked out when I got
the story I told how I got the fighter.
That's hilarious. Because I remember coming back into Crickets once and there were like 3 tables that had been shattered in a fight.
Yeah.
And it was for a tourist.
And they were supposed to be fancy. Like these were fancy, right?
Yeah. Like Bennington's fancy, but fancy.
No, they were fancier than Bennington.
Well, yeah.
Lily's was like
this much, like a little tiny bit fancy. Not that much. We really. All
right, so you were a private investigator. How did you get that job?
I moved to Boston to be a photographer, and studied it in the Globe, the Herald, Phoenix, all that shit. I have shot.
Can I just do what's it called when you do a disclaimer?
Yeah.
I didn't know Joe had any connection to Boston.
Oh, yeah. She didn't. Honest, she didn't.
think I just do it.
No. Because my sister lives there. I've been there 10 years. So I was doing the photography thing, and I really wanted to go shoot wars and show the horrible things that were happening in the world, thinking that people would see it and go, "Oh, that's bad. We should stop." And then I started dealing with the actual people who were in the business, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is so fucked." Like nobody, like it was a horrible.
They didn't want to let it out.
It's a horrible business. So I thought I would do commercial stuff and then do documentary, and sort of like, I could just galleries and books, and then I'll shoot like models. So I was testing all the models in Boston. I would shoot stuff for Stuff Magazine, all this other shit, and then I hit the wall. I just stopped, and I was working at the Sonesta. I was living in Porter Square by myself, had a relationship go horribly bad, and had a 15-month lease with a giant place I couldn't afford. Perfect.
Uh-oh.
So I started drawing a lot, and I started writing in sketchbooks, and all of a sudden I had like all this stuff, and I had this one thing I kept drawing, and I decided to build it. So I brought all this lumber in and turned my bedroom into a studio, and it was like sawing and hammering, and I built this fucking thing. And then I got TVs, and I started wiring it up. And a friend of mine because I studied straight photography, not installation art, none of that stuff.
Right.
And so a friend of mine's like, "Oh, this is installation art." I'm like, "Yeah, is it? I don't really." She's like,
I just felt it.
I just built it. I have no idea. It's taken over my bedroom. Like it was like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind when he builds the mud thing. It's that. So she was like, "You should go to Mobius," and so I started going to Mobius, and it was like performance art, installation, all this other shit. And I showed that the thing I built was called "What Did Jackie Say?" And do you remember Doug Crockett, who's the Globe Santa? Boston Globe used to have a Globe Santa, and everybody would write in.
I don't remember, but yeah.
He was a reporter who had been covered the Kennedys from the 50s on.
Oh, wow.
And he was a regular at the Sonesta. When he got a fight with his girlfriend, he would check in at the Sonesta, and he was just like Jimmy Durante, the fucking nose, the whole thing. And he was, back in my day, we just fight in the newsroom. And it was just like, and he knew I studied photography, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of here. Go see the world. Go do something." I'm like, yeah. And so we're talking about John Kennedy Jr. saluting at the funeral. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "That was so set up." That kid turned 3 that day. Think he had any idea what he was doing? And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And he's like, he was taught to do that, so he would do that at that moment. And I'm like, what a weird thing. In all of that, someone had to take the time. So then I went back and I watched the video, and there's Jackie Onassis leaning down, saying something, pulling, and then he went and so it was called "What Did Jackie Say?" And all it was the drawing of him, and it was 2 televisions that were looping. Just him walking over, saluting, over and over. And it was in the employee art show. The Sonesta Hotel. The last employee art show they ever had.
Oh my God, Joey, love it.
And they were just like, I got a, from the AV department, I'm like, "Hey, do you have a VCR that'll loop?" He's like, yeah. I brought it in. So they walked in, it was all like macrame, a watercolor of a landscape. And then there's this fucking thing that's 8 feet tall, that's got a base full of sand. There's glass eyes looking up, these zigzag wood things, and 2 TVs just looping John Jr. saluting over and over and over.
What does it say about me that I totally get it?
Oh, yeah. But the thing is, I kept going. I kept building it. It got bigger.
Where did you build it?
I proposed it to Mobius. They had an open thing for artists who wanted to show there. So I sent a proposal, and they said yes, and none of it existed. Because I didn't have a studio. I had nowhere to work. It took a 50-foot truck to move all the stuff. There were 30 TVs. There were motion detectors. It was a 27-foot-long hallway made out of PVC pipe and fabric that I had custom made. So literally, the entire thing was like a giant erector set. I had images that were being projected.
Were they the same images of John?
All different. What I did was I
it.
made 8 black silhouettes of him saluting that were down the hallway. You'd walk and everything was on motion detectors. So you'd walk in and be turning things on as you walked in. Mm-hmm. And there was a real window in the fabric that you would look in, and it was exactly like 1963 with the furniture, the newspapers, everything. And there's one picture of Jackie Onassis with JFK. He's looking off in the distance, and she's looking right at you in the picture. And the entire room is filled with 100 cut out of window screens, that saluting image. So the entire thing is like a giant mobile, and the only light in the room is a TV, 1963 TV. and they would slowly spin, and it just looked like static, like floating around in the air. And then you would walk down, and so all the pictures were small details of like part of an ear, part of this, part of that. So you couldn't really see it. And then you walk down, and there's all these TVs piled up with that zigzag thing. And as you walked up, they would all start turning on, and we made a more complicated video. And then you went out, and there was another silhouette, and I got reviewed, got some other things, and then I started doing performance art and little tiny things.
I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
How did you know when to stop with it? Because that's the one thing that I'm always fascinated with artists. How do they know when to stop?
I thought that was enough. Just like, honestly, because it took 50 hours for me to set that thing up. I was like sleeping on the gallery floor, like, what the fuck am I doing? I got an opening, and I've never done this, and none of it had ever, like, I had it all wired up separately, but I never had the whole thing together. So it was just, everything went fine. I mean, I could not have, it changed my life. Like, doing that thing completely changed.
So through your pain, doing a need, you didn't have enough money to pay for the place. You just went inside, and this is what was coming out. Yeah. Sometimes it comes out a lot, and you have to pull it back in or nurture it or whatever. Right? But
the interesting is, like, I didn't know anything about the art world. Like, I've always loved stand-up comedy, and I always knew. So I knew, you do stand-up, you do this. So I was making it. I knew stuff existed, but I wasn't making it thinking, I'll put a portfolio together, and I'll go to galleries, and because that's fucking stupid, and especially in Boston, that wasn't really.
But you don't. And what I'm getting from this whole conversation is you don't like that whole like. You're like an artist. You like to be able to express yourself, and all the extra stuff is really it hurts your brain.
I just think that the what fucks people up more is their perception of whatever the individual industry. Like the art world's all fucked up, the fashion world's all like they're all fucked up.
Well, because it's like they're going after something that doesn't exist.
Part of it, and some of it's the idea of it. I think
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, going after the idea that
it's like, I moved to Los Angeles, and I got on a pilot. I got little.
Because once you do the reality of it, you're like, this is just life.
Yeah, and that's it.
Even if you're in the fashion world, even if you're a model who everybody says is beautiful, you still have to put the clothes on and walk around and make sure you look all right and deal with people they go in for like look-sees or whatever. They just look at them and tell them whether they're pretty enough or not. It's like people have this fantasy that there's one day that it's going to be like the mother's breast, and you're just going to be completely happy like you're. I don't think that happens till you're dead.
I don't think it happens. Period. Because I've seen really miserable rich people. I've seen really miserable poor people. I've seen
vice versa.
Successful and unsuccessful. So I think what's great about now in history is that, like, I wrote a bunch of movies that didn't get made, that got heat and all that kind of shit. And actually, how I ended up in LA, the second show I did at Mobius got noticed by Carsey Werner because the reviews in the newspaper. And all of a sudden I'm like, the grants were drying up, the venues were closing down.
Was that during the time when everybody was getting all the deals and all the money was flying? So it was
96, 97. Yeah. And I was just like, maybe I could come out, get, work as a sitcom writer, do a little acting, and then be able to do all this other stuff. And, having no idea that, there's not going to be time for any other stuff. Like that's all you're gonna fucking do and take classes and blah blah blah. And I didn't act until I was in my late 20s.
All right, but before you keep talking, I have to find out how you became a private investigator.
So I was working on the Sonesta Hotel, and I hit the wall with the food service thing and just quit. And I cashed in what little money I had in a 401k, and somebody at Mobius knew another actor who had just moved from New York to Boston and was working at a company that did background checks for, like, if you're going to hire somebody. So I went from bartender, waiter, barback. I did all this computer shit on my own to working in an office, like 9 to 5. And, it was with another actor. We don't wear business clothes. And so all of a sudden I'm like, I'm doing reference interviews for chemical engineers, having no idea what they're fucking talking about. I'm just writing, I have no idea. And, and I would, criminal checks, people lie about their resume, all that stuff. And then that company was owned by another company in LA that did intellectual property investigations, trademarks. So when I decided to move, I said, I'm going to go to LA. So I worked for Boston from LA and this other company, and then that got shut down. And all of us got fired. And all the people that got fired started this other company that I worked with for 11 and a half years.
Oh, so it wasn't private investigator, like following people who were cheating on their wives and everything. It was
Never. It was all... here and there, it was like counterfeit goods. It was... like I had...
The counterfeit goods is serious business, too. They shut places down in New York.
Oh, yeah. I did a follow-up on after an FBI raid, that kind of shit. But most of this stuff was phone on the ground. But it was international. I had to call other countries. And the thing is... I never used my real name.
So you weren't the Joe Wilson?
No. I never, like, it was a lot of acting and improv. Like, I've talked to people for an hour on the phone and describing things that don't exist. My boss that doesn't exist, who they claim they met. Yeah, I had entire backstories because I needed a fucking... Because you have to ask all these ridiculous questions for lawyers. That's all I was working for, were attorneys for the biggest companies on the planet.
Right.
So then they have a trademark, or they want to get a trademark. So they want to figure out, what are they doing with it? How long they've been doing it? Where are they doing it? Is it active? Because they're trying to figure out, or they're in court and they're fucking going at each other.
They want to take the person's trademark, or they
either want to take it, they want to buy it, they want to figure out the worth of it, they want to figure out if someone's stealing their intellectual property, if they're doing anything that's even close to a parody, or they're just like, the restaurant looks the same. That kind of shit. From computer stuff, like it was... And the thing is, I would do investigations on stuff, and then 3 months later, it would be on TV. Like, I would see the product on TV. And other things where words that, like this whole cloud computing thing, I investigated cloud computing 6 years ago. Like 6 years ago.
Investigating how to make sure that no one else had it.
It was the beginning of cloud computing, so everybody was battling for those trademarks. Because that's the thing, is when a new wave of technology comes through, all the I this, I that, so Apple grabbed I everything. And that's the thing, it's like that's why that is an industry that will just, like, it grew, that company grew. It just kept going. And
your company that you
the company I worked for, yeah. Until it got to the point where, I got threatened a lot because I would fuck people's businesses up because they were jackasses. Like, they didn't, you don't name your company, not saying that anyone did this, but McDonald's, and sell burgers. Because you're an idiot. You really
meaning like if I opened a McDonald's, so then I would be mad at you because I lost my business?
Yeah, because you were dumb enough to not think, maybe McDonald's will be pissed that I named my restaurant McDonald's and I sell hamburgers.
People are so dumb in business. I can't, sometimes I'm like, I used to think it was me because I was like, there's no way that they could be this dumb. No. It has to be me because otherwise they're being so dumb that I'm just going to win no matter what. I'm like, I always thought there was more complication to it. I'm like,
they're just dumb.
But usually it's dumb with the greed. It always goes back to that. It's
what's interesting is that I when I was doing the private investigator thing, the term that I heard, which was a hacker term, was social engineering. That so much of hacking is not actually just sitting there hacking. It's calling and getting passwords, getting manuals, dumpster diving. You run a whole phone system. After hours, you get the name of everybody and you use them in conversation when you call during business hours. There's a nice little trick.
You mean call me and say, hi, Sue?
Like, I'm calling into a company, and that's the thing is, like, I would have to investigate the company to figure out who I needed to be, to ask the questions I needed to ask.
Oh, to hack into their system.
No, just to talk to them. I wouldn't hack. I never hacked.
Oh, not you, okay.
But I'm saying that was the social engineering part. So I would have to call up. I would have to be someone that they're going to give time to. I have to, so I've been everything. I've been a dick, I've been the nicest person, I've been a student, and that's where the acting thing comes in. And then, hi, I'm doing this thing for class, and it's just like, boom, there are already, lots of ums and Mr. and Miss, and then, if you're working for somebody big and it's in New York, you just talk fast. And who's your assistant? Yeah, have them give me a call. It's just, and that's what it is. And after a while, you just fucking,
oh my God,
and my wife would just sit there and go, you're amazing. Because I would just be like, and I'd get into it. Because I had to chase down a guy who had an escort service in Austin that the hotel, he had named his escort service after the hotel. So it was all these Yellow Page ads with their hotel name, escort service. And they couldn't find him. They hired PIs in Austin, couldn't fucking find him. So the guy that owns our company meets with the law firm and they're like, we got this problem. We've already hired PIs. You guys are in LA, but we'll bet you can't do it. That was our first year, and he was like, fuck it. So they gave it to me. They would give me all the crazy shit, because I could fucking just... And I did everything I could to find him with databases, with all this other shit, to the point where I had to fucking call him up. And I'm like, all right, I'm calling up the guy who owns an escort service. Who is he going to respond to? Porn producer.
Oh.
So I was a porn producer, and I explained to him that I ran all his domain names. He owned a domain name that was like, escorts something escorts, and I said it's the name of our porn, and it's about the escorts that escorts hire. And he thought it was a great idea. So the first time I ever pitched a movie was to a jackass who owned an escort service in Austin, and he thought it was a great idea. He's going to bring in girls, and I said, look, the director and producer are going through Houston, Austin, looking at feature dancers. They want to sit down and negotiate the domain name. As I'm talking to this guy for a week, back and forth, back and forth. I find out that he is divorced, that he has 2 kids, that they live where the P.O. box is, that was 40 miles outside of L.A., that I'm like, outside of Austin. I'm like, how the fuck? And so I'm like, okay, now that makes sense. And then I knew he did time for weed possession, so I told him about the Hustler Coffee House. I told him about the cops giving us shit for shooting a porn and get him on that side. And then he tells me that he's agoraphobe or something.
Agoraphobe means he can't leave the house. Yeah.
He doesn't like germs, and he said this is the perfect business for him because he just runs the phones, and then he has drivers deal with all the girls and the customers, and it's the perfect job. So he doesn't even want to fucking leave his place. So we rent the hotel room, and the name of the director doesn't exist. We hire PIs to do the service of process, and I just stop. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, because we have him for an hour, and I'm like, and the phone rings. It's the fucking pimp, and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I called the room. There's nobody there. I'm not gone. There's nobody there. So I'm like, trust me, they're there. He's like, well, they're not answering. I'm not going to go. I'm like, fuck. So I got to call the office. They hook me up with the PIs. I get the PI. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? He's like, well, we got one guy in the lobby, one guy outside the room. I didn't want to be inside the room in case he freaked out. We want to be able to run. And I'm like, he's fucking agoraphobic. He's not leaving because you're not answering the phone. So then I'm like, you're there to negotiate a domain name. He says, what's a domain name? And I'm like, fuck, you're like old school PI. Like, you don't understand any of this internet shit. Fuck. So I got to explain everything to him. So I call up the pimp back and I'm like, look, they checked out. They'll meet in the restaurant. And the guy, he's a white guy, shows up a little pimped out. A little just because and he got out of a cab and they saw him outside through the glass window. Oh, that would be our guy. Because everybody sells, business knits, fucking shirts, that crap. And they walked up and he was not, like my phone started ringing as soon as he got home because not only did he not sell his domain name, he didn't meet his porn producers. He left the house. Like, I got him to leave the house to get served. Now he's got to change all his business names, cancel all his ads, change everything. And he knows that cease and desist because he's served.
I was going to say from the very beginning, why can't they just serve him with the cease and desist? Because he couldn't find him.
And that's why it cost extra money, so they had to hire us. So we won the bet. But it was, so it's that, that's as cowboy as it gets.
But that's, like, what? How come you don't pitch a TV show about that?
Because I don't know. I don't think it would be a good show.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, like, and the weird thing is, like, I remember talking to Kirsten Vangsness when I quit the job and we were about to shoot Vampire Mob and we're someplace and like we're not palsy at all, but it was, friend of a friend's how she got there. And I said, I'm quitting my job, and she's like that. And I said, I have kind of a similar job to your character on Criminal Minds. I just kind of sit around on the phone, I do computer shit, and she said, that must really fuck with your worldview. And I was just like, oh yeah, like I talk to people all over the world. And that was the thing, like I had great conversations. I learned all stuff. Translators when I didn't speak Japanese, Chinese. I called fucking all over. And that was the thing, you ride the time zone. So you're at home, and I'm like, okay, 6 o'clock I can call Japan. Midnight I can call Europe. It's 9 a.m. 1 a.m. I can call the UK. So my sleep pattern was just... And you're on deadline, so when they say, can you call back in 2 hours? Sure, it's 3 a.m.
But wait a minute, I want to know why you don't make a TV show about this.
Because I don't think I don't know.
Joe.
It doesn't sound fun to me.
Joe.
It doesn't sound fun to me.
Listen to me right now.
All right.
It's on the podcast.
Okay.
I'm telling you right now.
You think somebody's going to pitch it?
Amazing.
Yeah, but that's only one...
Joe,
it would have
it's
to be
amazing.
Cooked. It would have to be cooked in a way.
You can cook it. It's amazing. It's hilarious. All the characters. There's so many storylines.
Honestly, did you ever know?
And the way they lie. Let me just tell you this,
yeah.
Because this is what I'm good at.
Okay.
I'm good at putting people together. I'm good at seeing what they're good at, and I'm good at telling them how to be good. Because it'll leave you all sorts of room to show your frustration that you have with the world and all the bad stuff.
Right.
You can do that through this TV show.
That's an interesting idea.
You can show
Did you ever know Charlie Shannon? So stand-up, T-Show Shannon's,
No.
T-Show Shannon's brother. He stand-up comedian from Houston, Austin. Did a bunch of shows with him. He died a few years ago. But really funny, really cool guy. And he always said, we got to sit down and I got to figure this whole comedian PI thing out, because he's like, there's a show in this thing.
Joe, I'm telling you, because not only that, you will be able to exercise your own like how you saw with the Globe and how you saw that what really goes on. They didn't want to show the war. You could use that as stories that go through without naming names or anything.
Oh, yeah.
And then everybody gets a message And you still feel fulfilled doing your entertainment and what you feel good at. Because sometimes I feel like that's why people have a hard time.
Maybe. I think the thing is that like with Vampire Mob, obviously it's a vampire show.
I haven't seen it, so I can speak to it.
And it did you ever know any of the Frank Salemi, Cadillac Frank?
No.
Does his name sound familiar? Frank Salemi, he was... Cadillac Frank was pals with Billy Bolger when they were kids.
I thought, yeah.
They both blew up something. His Frank Salemi Jr. was a regular at the Sonesta Hotel while he was going to court at my bar. Mm-hmm. So I don't know who the fuck he was.
Right.
And he's ordering Sambuca and espresso at 11 a.m. and was coming in every day. And Turtleneck, nice guy, offered me a job at the channel when they turned it into a strip club because they owned it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, I get benefits. And then he's like, what do you do? And I just said photographer because you say artist. People think, yeah, you're fucking mine. And he's like, oh, I can help you get studio space. And I got all these friends in Southie. I can hook you up with all the building. And I end up living 4 Point Channel for like 5 years, like Melcher and A Street, right across from that diner.
Yeah.
And we had 2 other mob guys who were regulars. We were covering one because he was cheating on his wife. We covered him. The whole hotel covered for this guy. So he was a member of the gym. So when he left, he would tell the gym, I'm leaving at 1 today. It's 11 a.m. I'm leaving at 1. Then he goes to the first restaurant, I'm leaving at 1. Goes to the front desk, I'm leaving at 1. And then he goes to the other restaurant, leaving at 1. And then he leaves. So while his wife calls for the next 2 hours, all of us just saw him.
Right.
For 2, and then at 1, he's gone.
All right. I'm telling you, I'm sold. I'm telling you, even that story, all of it.
Yeah, so the mob guy gets Frank Salemi Jr., and his dad, Cadillac Frank, who's still out there somewhere, maybe, if he isn't dead. One of the other bartenders calls up, my friend Elaine from Revere. She's like, turn on the fucking TV, Joe. Frank's on the fucking TV. And I turn on the TV, and there he is with a fucking number. FBI had set up a fake production company in Santa Monica, and they were going to shoot a film in Boston. So they all busted all of them for racketeering, and that was the one that Bolger fucking took off on. That was the bust. And Salemi and his dad and all the rest of them got arrested, and then his father flipped for the government. And then Frank Salemi Jr., who was my regular, died in prison of AIDS.
All right, and let me just say, it brings me right back to dummies and greed. They catch him every single time because they want greed, they want fame, money, all this stuff. That's what I mean. You create this weakness,
I agree.
then they can take advantage.
I think the thing is, for me, when I made Vampire Mob, it was... I don't watch any of the vampire shows. I wanted to make something that was different, that was funny, but it had a little drama in it, really good acting.
Are you in it?
I'm not in it.
All right. I'm going to watch Vampire Mob. I want everybody to watch it, but I am going to hold you to this. I will email you, and I'm going to tweet at you. If you don't write the treatment for you being...
Oh, I'm never going to be.
Yes.
No.
Joe, yes.
I've worked with me. I'm much better behind the camera.
I'm telling you, that's such a good story.
You haven't seen but that's the thing is, like, I'm much better.
All right, then write it for somebody who you think can do it. But I'm telling you, after this, people hear this podcast.
Well, in terms of you saying the greed thing, the Vampire Mob thing, definitely got people circling, and people like, oh, you just look like, oh, you're just fucking vampires in the mafia, you're going to be money. And it wasn't the intention, it wasn't the idea. The idea was to build a giant audience, just keep going. Mm-hmm. So after everything kind of fell apart with Vampire Mob for the next season, after a year of bullshit, I have been writing plays every month for 4 years at the Russian Group Theater. Cafe plays, write a play in 4 hours, the cast of 2 gets it for 6 hours, and they perform it twice that night. So I've written like 40 of them. And so I have all these plays that have been performed in front of a live audience twice. Most of them have some comedy, a little drama. And there used to be a television show in the late 50s called Playhouse 90. And they would do a lot of them were live, 90-minute show, and they would adapt a play for television. And they would bring in big-time actors and big-time directors. It's a one-off. It's a one-off. They would do a one-off. But hold on. So I'm like, after Vampire Mob falls apart, hold on, because this is where Darlene comes in.
Okay.
So because she donated to Vampire Mob.
Okay.
So
Oh, Darlene did too?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. We have to totally
we got to talk about Darlene, because Darlene brought me to Sue's show. And
she helped me with my Kickstarter.
Exactly.
She's amazing. But
here's where it all comes together. So I knew her from Vampire Mob.
Darlene Vendegger, right?
Vendegna.
Vendegna.
Probably
her name was spelled wrong in my playbill. with a G instead of a D.
Right.
I'm going to make it up to her, but let's just say it right now. She's
awesome.
awesome.
I got to do the same thing on the credits. So
oh, really?
Yeah,
oh,
everybody gets on the credit. Yeah,
we spelled your name wrong.
No, I don't think I do. I got to type it right now.
Oh, yeah. Make sure
literally, I just got the first one.
Right. All right, everybody. That's another episode of the Kadoozie Kast. Make sure you look out for Joe Wilson. He's on Twitter at Joe Wilson TV and Vampire Mob at Vampire Mob on Twitter. Check them out, will ya? Thanks again for listening. And we're out.